The Calsonic name originated from Nihon Radiator Company, originally sponsoring the famous Silvia S12 super silhouette car. This was shortened to Nichira and in '88 became Calsonic. The Calsonic livery saw success at Le Mans with the sunset of the Group C era, but really became its own with the debut of the first true blue Calsonic livery in the JTCC with the Nissan Skyline R31 GTSR. The R31 Calsonic Skyline was quick in its own right, but its successor was something else entirely: the arrival of Godzilla. In 1990, the R32 Skyline GTR made its debut, changing Group A touring cars forever. The 1990 season saw drivers Hoshino and Suzuki win 5 of the 6 races and finish with the most points. Another 3 victories followed in 1991, and in 1992 the Calsonic team won yet another 3 races, and then in '93 they won 4 races. Of the 29 consecutive races that the R32 Skyline GTR won in succession from 1990 until the end of the Group A era, saw the Calsonic GTR accounting for over half of them, including the prestigious Fuji Intertech 500km race in '90 and '91. In 1996, the Calsonic Skyline was upgraded to the R33 model and raced for the next 3 seasons. The turn of the century brought us the R34 Calsonic GTR, arguably the most aesthetic model of all of the GTRs to race in the JTCC. At least to me, there's just something about Naughty's cars that balance sharp lines with sleek curves. The Calsonic livery has seen use all the way up to present day, but its long-lasting partnerships with Nissan and specifically Team Impel at nearly 40 years strong is why it is regarded so highly as one of the most successful race teams of all time. So without a doubt, the Calsonic livery holds a place in our hearts for being one of the most infamous racing liveries in history, as well as being adorned on the legendary R32 GTR, the true Godzilla of its time. It is because of this I have decided to recreate the R32 version of this livery. When creating or recreating a livery, the first thing that you must do is find as many visual resources as you can find. This primarily includes reference images of the styles you're inspired by or actual photos of the livery that you wish to recreate. Find as many different angles of the car that you can find and compile them into a resources folder. Once you have gathered all of the reference photos that you think you need, now you must make a note of every sponsor logo and visual element that you can identify. This will give you a list of all the assets that you will need to create this livery, and you can tick them off as you go. For those of you who want a compiled folder of all the assets needed to make this livery, it is available on my website. Now you have your livery assets, it's time to apply them to a template. I am obviously going to be using the R32 GTR, but this process applies to pretty much any car. First, I recommend going onto the internet and conducting a search for your car of choice's wheelbase. This ensures that we can get the most accurate template that we can. It's also a good idea to pull any other technical specs, body length and body height. These will come apparent later when we are creating our document. For this next step, you'll need a side shot or profile image of your car. It's best to try and get the most square on picture that you can. We don't want any funny angles or perspective. You can usually find good images of cars if you use the terms orthographic projection. These are like technical drawings that don't include any perspective. And a top tip, try and use the highest resolution image that you can. It's going to make the tracing process much easier and much quicker. If you're struggling to find a picture of your car on Google or the specific layout of your car, body kits, wheels, etc. Personally, I've used Forza Motorsports 7 on my computer to find any cars that I couldn't find on Google or the images weren't good enough to use. It also gives you a complete 360 of the car, obviously, so this is a fantastic resource. Okay, let's set up our document. Width should be the overall body length of your car, and height, well, obviously the height of your car. Make sure that your document is set to 72 ppi. Now we draw 3 boxes: total body length, wheelbase, and chassis height. Set these in place and don't move them. I like to lock these on their own layer. This is for our reference later. Now paste your template image onto its own layer. Lower the layer opacity. Create a new layer called Body and use the pen tool to trace the outline of your vehicle. You only want to be tracing the body color of the car, so avoid tracing any glass or light clusters. They can take a while, so you can do them later. The reason we're doing this is so that we can have control over the color of our car, and it helps when you're designing the livery. Now we have our template. Like I said before, you can really take this stage to the extreme, but for the sake of designing a livery, it isn't strictly necessary. It is at this stage you want to create your livery layer. Now, while referencing your visual resources, pull in all of your livery assets and sponsor decals. Arrange them as you see fit. It is a good idea at this stage, if you have access to the car that you are cutting a livery for, go and take some real-world measurements for your reference. Door height, panel length, etc. to help you scale your decals correctly. Have your layup complete? Is it looking like a livery yet? Good, let's continue. Now here is where we actually prepare this decal for cutting with a vinyl cutter. We could send this decal as is to our chosen cutting software and cut it, but this is a very inefficient and wasteful way of working. Instead, what you want to do is create a new document with the dimensions of your vinyl width. It is important to note that this new document is for a single color only, so for the decals that will be a different color, you must create another one of these documents. My cutter allows for 72 centimeters or 28 inches wide rolls of vinyl, so this is going to be our maximum document height. Document length matters less, as we will adjust this once we have all of our decals in place. This stage I like to call material optimization. Grab all of your scaled decals of the same color and paste them into your material optimization document. You can group and label these within your cutting document to keep it as organized as possible, but this can interfere with optimization. Now you want to organize everything to fit within your document as efficiently as possible. Remember to leave a small margin between your decals and the edge of the document. This will become apparent later. I like to start with the largest decals and work my way through to the smallest. You can rotate your decals, but whatever you do, do not scale them. If you have limited vinyl, this can take a couple of tries, so don't worry if you can't get it all to fit the first time. Once you have all of your decals positionally optimized, draw a rectangle the height of your document and encapsulate all of your decals horizontally. This is our new document size. Send this rectangle to the back of your document. You can do this by right-clicking and sending to the back, or Control-Command-Shift square bracket thingy. Select everything in your document and go to Pathfinder. We want to click Subtract Selection, or whatever the equivalent in your software is. We basically want to remove everything on the front and leave the inverse of our selection. The reason we do this is for compatibility reasons. For instance, in EasyCut, it tends to auto-identify vector shapes and draws a box around them, which on a livery layup can cut through the decals in the surrounding area. I've run into this problem the first time I cut a livery, and it basically ruined the entire sheet. But this way, the cutting software auto-recognizes our new shape as one large rectangle, therefore making our layup as compatible as possible with all different cutting softwares. Check everything is correct in your document and export it to EPS. EasyCut only seems to work with EPS, but other softwares will accept all vector formats like AI, EPS, and SVG. Open up your cutting software. I am using EasyCut because of its one-time purchase business model, means I don't have to keep paying to use it. Create a new document at the same size of your material optimization document. Drag your material optimization EPS into your new cutting document. It should be exactly the same size. I will note here that it's a good idea to have your cutter already set up, as this will be a long cut both physically and time-wise, so you want to make sure that everything is going to go to plan. Do a simple cut, maybe one of the decals that you've already drawn, but you just want to make sure that your pressure and speed is set correctly. Now we wait for it to cut. Please, at this stage, do not leave your cutter alone. I have noticed with my cutter that the material can bunch up and cause the cutting blade to scratch the vinyl as it's travelling to a new cut point. Also, if you're cutting very fine, small decals, it can stick to a sharp point and basically tear up the vinyl as it's cutting, and it starts weeding the vinyl as it's cutting it, which is obviously not what we want. And our vinyl is cut. Remove tension from your vinyl and slide it onto a table. If you don't have a table, a hard floor works great. Just make sure it's clean. Now we begin the weeding process. The first thing that I like to do is observe my cut vinyl and identify areas that will be a problem when weeding. I like to make small cuts in our waste vinyl to make it manageable when peeling it up. If you don't do this, you can end up accidentally sticking your cut vinyl with the waste vinyl in your hand, and it really messes things up. Now we have our weeded livery sheet. It's looking good, you can see your shapes and decals, but it's not ready for the car yet. Unfortunately, this next step can make or break your decals. Please, if you don't have the proper application tools, I wouldn't recommend trying to apply transfer tape in one go to your entire sheet. Take it slow, and instead of applying it horizontally, apply it vertically. This amount of material is much easier to deal with and control. Overlap it slightly when you apply it. Ultimately, this is waste material, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be flat. Okay, so I actually had to go out and buy one of these application tape rollers halfway through shooting this video because applying transfer tape to a massive sheet of livery decals is actually quite difficult, as it turns out. It's really good though, so I 100% recommend getting one. I also had to employ a tape dispenser to help, which isn't ideal because now I have to pay him a monthly wage. So guys, that's how you make a livery for your car. That being said, I don't own an R32 GTR, so if you want this livery, you can go and buy it on my website. It will be for sale up there as soon as this video drops. So if you're interested, go and check it out. Thank you guys for watching.